Welcome to SF Commercial Property Conversations with Bruce Bean, where Bay Area investments meet expert insights. Get ready to unlock the strategies of commercial real estate success.
So today we have Marc Bryman with us. And Marc, it's great to have you. You are in the Palo Alto area, but you have moved around quite a bit in your career from Southern California to New York City, and you learned acting in Denver. So give us a little history of how you ever arrived in the famous world of real estate.
Bruce, I had a fledgling acting career in New York City in the late 90s, and I was starting to do decently well when there were two very devastating SAG, Screen Actors Guild, strikes. And I was frustrated. I happened to be having a conversation with somebody in my building, and he recommended that I come work for him doing tenant representation work, real estate work. And I've been doing it ever since.
Wow. All right. So from 1998 till now, tenant rep. But you've done a few other things. You've done commercial and residential, all those things.
Well, I started as a tenant representative, which is a leasing representative for people that are merchants that are looking for space. And in New York City, it made perfect sense. But it's not something that I still do it to a small extent, but I started doing residential and other commercial deals as well as residential. And now I do what I call the full spectrum of real estate services here in the peninsula. I met a woman in New York City who grew up in the San Francisco Peninsula area, and we had our two children. We moved back, or rather we moved to Menlo Park so as to be close to her parents. And now I actually moved from Menlo Park and I'm now in Palo Alto.
All right. So you've gone through the full spectrum of things. Tell me what you think the market is these days.
Well, I think for the longest time, certainly with respect to the peninsula, it's been primarily, if not entirely, a seller's market, which is to say that we've had very limited inventory, more so in the residential side than the commercial side, but nevertheless, it's been heavily skewed towards the seller. And I think what we're starting to see is more and more of a buyer's market, very specifically, and the markets are changing, by the day, by the week, and it's really important to stay apprised of how things are going and what's moving, and pricing is really the ultimate thing. Sellers for the most part, sellers want the most money and buyers want to pay the least. It's a very simple quotient.
Yeah, right.
However, time on the market, days on the market are critical. And if somebody gets a hint of the fact that you've been on the market for a considerable amount of time, more often than not, it's because the property has not been priced correctly. So as part of a strategy that I like to engage in is you establish a likely range of where the property is going to either sell or lease. And I tend to like to price it, with the seller's approval, of course, at the lower end of that range so as to get interest so that we likely can end up at the top end of that range. And that tends to be the strategy that I employ.
No, I think a lot of agents, particularly in the residential world, try and use that method where if you price it low, you're going to get a lot more activity and hopefully a lot more people bidding on the property and hopefully bidding over the price to a point. It's always devastating when the sellers want this extravagant price and they won't, go for the lower price, and then months later they realize they had priced it way too high and have to bring it down. So
Right. Well, the last thing you want to do is to have to voluntarily reduce the price. That said, when pricing, you don't want to price it so ridiculously low that everybody knows, oh, well, that's just a ploy. You want it to be, you want to represent value, and you want people drawn to the property. It shows well, it's in a good location, whether, again, residential or commercial, but it's not so ridiculously low that they feel that they're being sort of trapped. So it's a bit of a dance, but I think it's one that is tried and true and makes perfect sense.
So I assume that the buyers with the most cash are still king out there.
Well, cash has always been king, yes. More so now in this particular market than ever before, really, or than in most cases before. Um, it's the peninsula, the San Francisco Peninsula, whether it's Palo Alto or Menlo Park or Atherton or Los Altos, there's a lot of what I call funny money out there. And so it's more about how many shares that is than it is about the actual cash. And so there's access to a lot of capital out here. And people often have very big portfolios, which they can borrow against. And so access to capital is not that big of a deal, especially at higher price points. And so with that said, people are able, even if it's not actual cash in the bank, oftentimes people are able to close in 14 or 16 days or something like that. And so it doesn't, cash is not as kingly, if you will, as it used to be. In this market, it tends to be more so because it's a difficult market. It's becoming more of a buyer's market, and cash is speaking a little more loudly. Yes.
So I'm curious if you happen to be seeing any of this crazy AI money coming out at you lately.
Well, it's, when you say AI money, we've been steeped in this sort of tech bubble, if you will.
Right.
And it's just a furtherance of that.
Mm.
It's not as if people say, oh, I made $24 million last year doing AI. It's, oh, I'm in tech. And what do you do? Oh, well, we concentrate on this or that. And yes, recently AI is what's driving things.
Yeah, no, particularly in San Francisco, I think that's true. So, any thoughts about what the famous crystal ball might be saying about the future?
Well, as any prudent advisor would suggest, I'm reticent to pull out a crystal ball of any kind. I think my feeling. I was speaking with potential sellers the other day, and people want more than ever to think that we're going to get back to these low interest rate levels. We're not going to see 2% and 3% or even 4% for a long time, if ever again. And so it's a matter of people understanding that 6 is not so bad. I mean,
Right.
I'm not a kid. I remember I wasn't a practicing professional at the time, but in the 70s, we were looking at 17, 18, 21% interest rates.
Yeah, the famous Carter years.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just think it's a matter of people understanding that, okay, 6 is not so bad. And if it does drop slightly, they may well have a chance to refinance or, but it's the price of doing business, and you certainly don't want to be out of the game. And quite frankly, when it comes to the commercial side of things, there's opportunity there. If you've got a strong business, there's an opportunity to take advantage of lower rents or lower prices for capital improvement and things or properties. So I like to think that a good representative can be successful in just about any market because they adapt to that market and they're giving advice and consulting with clients based on the situation, right? The circumstance that the client is in specifically, and obviously the time where we're trying to achieve this particular project.
So I'm curious if you happen to be seeing any properties coming available because of these lower interest rate loans are starting to pop up and be due.
More so on the commercial side. I think that we've seen a lot of it in San Francisco, where the bottom has dropped out and things are selling for pennies on the dollar, or they were, and we're starting to get a little bit. We're starting to get back to some reality, but certainly in the commercial world, I'm sure you've heard the expression "keeping your powder dry." Well, I think there have been a lot of people that have been holding money and waiting for opportunities. There's certainly more inventory out there now, so people can be a little bit more discerning. And it's become, as I mentioned to you earlier, it's becoming more and more of a buyer's market. And quite frankly, I have an office listing. I don't tend to do a lot of office work, but I have an office listing now, and they can be very, very discerning about what it is that they're choosing to, to spend money on in terms of a monthly lease, and in fact, dictating terms.
Yeah, there's not a big office market out there. So if you have a vacant office space, you got to basically kind of take whatever comes your way.
More or less, yes.
Yeah, I mean, not a lot of demand in that world right now, although I think it is coming back. I think what you're saying, or what I hear you saying, which I think I agree with, is that we've hit rock bottom, or hopefully we've hit rock bottom, and we're starting to kind of gradually move out of that area a little bit.
Well, I think that buyers and lessees are starting to feel like, yes, we may have hit something, and we better jump in before it's too late.
Yeah,
So there's a bit of a reverse mentality involved.
yeah, yeah. Okay, well, just for fun, I'm curious. You had said earlier that you like most any kind of food, and that you would love to sit with Teddy Roosevelt. Just for fun, why do you want to talk to Teddy Roosevelt?
Well, I don't want to create any animosity here, but politically, I think we're in a mess in this country. And when I look back on the people who've had huge impact on our growth over the past decades, centuries, what have you, to me, this is somebody who, although look, he wasn't perfect, but he came from a very upper class family, but he understood that he could use much of that power to speak for, the everyday man, and he did a lot of stuff. Both he and his nephew subsequently made some huge progress as far as this country is concerned. I just think he's a very interesting guy. He seemed to have an incredible personality, and he was. Aside from all the machismo and what have you, he was a rough rider, and he did some very interesting things. So I would love to sort of pick his brain, and I don't know that he would. Well, maybe he would believe and identify with what's going on today, but it would be very interesting to talk to him about it.
Yes, that I think you're right. That would be a very interesting conversation. I mean, he set into place all the national parks, right?
Yeah,
So, I
exactly.
mean, that in itself was an incredible feather in his cap. So,
Oh, he did. Yeah, no, he did some really incredible stuff. And I think he would be dismayed to find out that the current president wanted his bust aside his on Mount Rushmore. But that said,
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll soon see, maybe, or whatever will happen will there. But at
Yeah,
any rate, I think I want to kind of discontinue this conversation for now, but maybe in 3 to 6 months we should revise this and see how the market is going, see what changes have come up, and talk about that as we go along here.
I would love to. That'd be great. Yeah, and I'm hopeful that we are resilient, uh, economically, real estate wise, politically, and that we're gonna get to the other side of this.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, I look forward to talking to you again, and hopefully we will be somehow on the other side of this. We'll see how it goes.
That would be great.
Well, I look forward to that. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. That was great.
Indeed. Thanks, Bruce. I appreciate your time.
That's a wrap on today's journey through the SF commercial real estate scene. Ready to share your story? Visit sfcommercialconversations.com/guest. Your insights could lead the next conversation.